temperature, this dulls out. So when I see a pot that has not only is dulled a little bit, it's got what you could feel like, it doesn't take much imagination, kind of rough spots that feel like it might have been sticky once upon a time. That's the pinon pitch from the firing wood. This pot was made for the art market. Later on, there wouldn't be any of that because the potters start protecting the pots for the art market. So this pot has not only the beauty of this gorgeous form, and this one was made by Serafina Tafoya, Margaret Tafoya's mother. So Serafina's grandmother, Tony Roller, is an Indian market blue ribbon potter to this day. She's sort of she's my mentor when it comes to these pots. I frequently will take pots to her and I'll say, I think this pot is by Margaret Tafoya. And she'll say, Lynn, I think you haven't learned a thing. And she'll give me all the reasons why I'm wrong, which is wonderful. I learned so much from her. But she looked at this and she said, now don't you tell anybody this is damage. This is beauty. We call this the Pueblo natural beauty. This is the beauty of a pot used at home. It's the beauty of home, beauty of the love of cherishing your family through the use of the forms made at home. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous pot. Probably dates 1910 to 1920, and within a few years, Serafina Tafoya is doing other virtuosic types of forms. It's called a gourd jar. Still has a thick handle as if it might have been used for actual use rather than an art form. But it has these gourd elements. It has a rainbow band, a raised area, very subtly impressed finger designs. Little knob right here, remember, snakes of clay, a narrow neck, hard pot. There's no potter's wheel used for this. And then slightly flaring out jar. It's polished on the bottom. One of the ways we distinguish San Juan from Santa Clara. The San Juan people generally didn't do this, the Santa Claras did. This piece also attributed to Margaret Tafoya or Serafina, could possibly have been made by Tomasita, Margaret Tafoya's sister, in the 1920s, because she made beautiful forms like that as well. We're now into the art market a bit. So I've got an admission for you. This is called a wedding vessel, a wedding jar. If you go into a lot of galleries, it's a very common form. And a lot of people love this form. I don't. I've never liked this form. It sort of reminds me, years ago my wife and I went to, I don't know if you've ever been to Chicago, went to any of the restaurants in Chicago. I know Marty has. There's a wonderful restaurant called Charlie Trotter's. And they have, you get either the meat or the vegetarian, I don't know what they call it, degustation or something. It's like 9 courses or something. The vegetarian, the night my wife and I went, was all turnip. I don't like turnips. And so, for some reason, maybe the beginning of my midlife crisis, I'm not sure, I decided to get it anyway, even though I don't like turnips. Well, guess what? And Charlie Trotter sort of knows all this, a brilliant chef. He knew that it would be shocking, surprising to people that they would love every single one of those turnip-based little places that you got. And it was true. This is one of my favorite jars in the show. Because when a master does it, it's a whole different deal. This jar, I could not figure out. There are elements of San Juan to me and elements of Santa Clara to me. And so in my catalog, I called it Tewa. But it was bothering me, this pot. I knew I'd seen this exact form somewhere else. And so just a couple of days ago, I started pouring through some of my references. This is a wonderful book if you're interested in Tewa pottery. It's a biography of Margaret Tafoya by my friend Charles King, who has a gallery of mostly contemporary pottery in Scottsdale. I'm flipping through all these books, page by page, and I come across this. So I know it's hard to see, and you can take a look at it after the talk, but here's what struck me. It's got a pedestal base. By the 1920s, pedestal bases are about gone. They're considered passé. Nobody's making them anymore. It's one of the last of those. Like this. It has impressed areas, like this. It's incompletely reduced. It's got golden highlights and it's got black, like this. This area right here leading up to the spouts is a slight incline, like this one does. And this is what really got me. The negative space, the pear-shaped space, identical. This book is based on a collection by the Crenna family in Pittsburgh. Margaret Defoyer was involved in the creation of this book, and she identified this pot from their collection as a form that she was making in the early 1920s, and this was her pot. So I'm giving a very strong attribution of this as being an early unsigned Margaret Defoyer piece of pottery. So a word on attributions. You'll hear about that if you get into historic unsigned pottery, because people like to say they're pots by Margaret Defoyer or Maria Martinez because it's more expensive, more valuable. Dealers can charge more and sales are dearer. What I'm telling you is, despite my advancing age, I wasn't there to see who potted this. It's just conjecture. And I've talked to other people who seem to agree it's probably a Margaret Defoyer piece. But when you hear attributions, it's an accumulation of evidence, and sometimes there's a bias on the part of the dealers. Be careful with attributions. Whoever made this is a wonderful example, early wedding vase. Interestingly, at Santa Clara Pueblo, there's no such thing as a wedding vase, but double spouted jars like this were used, and I think may continue to be used for engagements, not weddings. So they would more likely call them engagement pots. So we've been doing a lot of Santa Clara. I thought I'd switch gears and go to San Juan. San Juan's very interesting. By the 1900 census, no potters at San Juan. No people saying they're potters anymore. San Juan was always known for larger utilitarian pieces of pottery, but the forms are all like this, kind of round. There's no operatic extravaganza types of pots made at San Juan, but what they made were big, beautiful, utilitarian pieces. And they probably made more than they needed at San Juan, and so because they were such strong forms, they would trade them. Well, here's what's wonderful again for an 1890s jar, if you look at the subtleties. What you see here are fire clouds. So the fire clouds are formed when the fuel, the manure that I was talking, the horse manure I was talking about earlier, just flies around, adheres to the pot, and burns off. Fire clouds are beautiful in San Juan pottery. And you see we have a number of they're called red on tans. This form is called black on gray, as this one is. And I'm running out of the type of pottery forms there are at San Juan. Red on tan, black on gray. The fire clouds adhere oftentimes randomly. Pueblo people thought that too, natural decoration. Today, you don't see them much because fewer and fewer potters are firing traditionally. They tend to lose their pots. They crack in the firing process, and so more now firing only an electric kiln, and all this warmth is lost. The happenstance of that is lost. This piece, to me, is just spectacular. So it's got fire clouds, but here's an element I've seen enough times to think it's not by happenstance. These two fire clouds are right at the line of demarcation between the black and the gray, which sometimes bleeds through tan. That was put on purpose. That's a signature of the family or this artist who's now long forgotten. So when I see those pieces of manure just on like that, they were put on before it was fired. Now here again, there wasn't enough manure, or they just didn't care to totally reduce this pot, and look at the result. It just bleeds through red. It's like a sunset in Santa Fe through the clouds. It just bleeds through red and golden highlights. It's just stunning, and it's all the vagaries of the firing process. It's one of my favorite jars in the show, and this is a small storage jar, or it's got an indenture here, so it may have been used as a water jar as well. So I think I'll stop there. I mean, I go on a few minutes past my 15 minutes, so please stay. We can talk about anything that you'd like to. If you want some more details or wander around back here and see some of the other pottery. So I'm just going to close by expressing to all the potters still potting today, but certainly to these unknown potters. I mentioned before, they cherish their families making these wonderful forms. providing the vehicle for food to be stored and food to be served, and their families benefited so much from that love and from their skill. And to this day, 100 years later, in a way they're cherishing us as well. We're so lucky to have these beautiful forms that these unknown potters made 100 years ago. So I'll close there and just thank you so much for being here tonight.